Let's talk about Tom Barrack, arguably one of the most compromised members of the current US government. His name resurfaced lately with the Epstein file with a very disturbing email by Jeffrey asking him, "Send photos of you and child. Make me smile." Why would he send such a thing, and what does he mean by that? Now, the more I studied about this person, the more I investigated, the more concerned and shocked I've became that he's actually right now serving in the role that he is serving in the Middle East. My name is Mansur, reporting for All Israel News, and I'm going to try to help you understand something that I think more people should be talking about, and that is how compromised could Tom Barrack be, and what's the implications that it have to the Middle East, to Israel, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, and everything in between, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and the United States of America. It doesn't look like America first. Let's just say it that way. Here's a few points we should know about it. Tom Barrack is mentioned in the Epstein file via an email from 2016 email exchange. Epstein to Barrack, "Send photos of you and a child, make me smile." Why would he say something like that to him, and what does he mean by that? That is something that definitely worth noting. No criminal charges from the Epstein connection yet. Association adds network of risk and complement risk optics. Arrested by the DOJ, the Department of Justice, in 2021, charged with acting as an unregistered foreign agent for the UAE, basically being a spy for the UAE inside the US government. He have long-term connections to the Trump family starting from the 80s and have done many businesses with them and focused on the Middle East and the United Arab Emirates and everything in between, which will help you understand how compromised is the next thing that I'm going to say. Accused of using direct access to Trump to influence US policy. The DOJ described back-channel communication with UAE leadership. The DOJ alleged he inserted pro-UAE language into Trump campaign speeches and shared drafts with UAE-linked contacts to advance UAE narratives. Now, this is a real investigation that didn't come out of nowhere. He was literally accused of taking UAE agenda and bringing it for Trump to use it in his speeches and other members of that government to promote UAE agendas over American agendas and other agendas in the Middle East. Surprise, surprise, as many billionaires like himself, he was acquitted in 2022, failure to meet criminal burden. Not a clean conduct. Not that everything that we just said didn't happen. Everything happened, but it just borderline, it's not really criminal what he did. So we shouldn't arrest him. So now with this in mind, what do you think is the worst possible decision that the Trump administration can do with this kind of personality that is obviously heavily tied to the Arab elites in the Middle East and to countries like Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and other very shady countries in that region, which we know already he's heavily invested in them, and he's gaining a lot of money from that connection by promoting their agendas. And these people, they have a lot of money. So what would you think should be the right move? Well, let's see what they did. Appointing him as the U.S. ambassador for Turkey, the one that is leading the whole Middle East operation right now, and even sending him as the one leading the convoy for peace and re-establishing communication with Syria. Surprise, surprise, ISIS is all in the streets. The Kurds have been betrayed. The Christians, the Druze, and the Alawites are being massacred in Syria, while the government of the U.S. all of a sudden supports Jawlani, which is a terrorist in a suit, while all of his soldiers are wearing ISIS and Al-Qaeda patches. It's a bit crazy, right? So to further even more, they're offering him right now to be the one that would lead the next project in Iraq. Someone that is clearly under the investigation that he is not looking for American interests, but actually trying to promote Arab interests in the Middle East. By the way, he was born in Lebanon, but even the Lebanese don't like him anymore because he's called many of them, including the journalists, that they're savage animals. Here, let's make things even more spicy. More spicy. Are you ready for this? So he was anointed as the chairman of the Trump 2017 Inaugural Committee, raised $107 to $109 million was record total for an inauguration, basically party and celebration. No one have ever raised so much money for any inaugurating president or anyone basically in the United States, as far as I know. Maybe Taylor Swift, I'm not so sure about that. But let's keep it right now into dry details. The inaugural fund, unlimited donations, very weak to non-existent oversight, meaning that no one really knows where the money came from. A lot of speculations, but let's just say, if we know already that the Arabs around the world are trying to manipulate America and to push America, lobby basically the government to do their will in the Middle East and around the globe, and they have unlimited sources of money, and we know already that they know how to hide their support to universities and other establishments in the US. So what should we do? Let's give them an open door through the image of Tom Barrack into the government and have them as the main source that will come and throw the huge party to celebrate the new presidency. Don't you think that this might look heavily compromised? Now, maybe I'm wrong, but it is definitely worth mentioning. Major exposure to foreign and Gulf-linked capital. All of this is coming by the Department of Justice, guys, and this is coming by a real investigation that happened against him. Founder of the Colony Capital. Business model relies on Middle East sovereign wealth. Long-term financial dependence on the Gulf elites. Oh yeah, by the way, a lot of these elites, including him, are officially on the Epstein file. So it does make you wonder, is Tom Barrack the equivalent, the Arab equivalent of Jeffrey Epstein? That's something that it just came to mind right now. It's definitely seems interesting. If you look at this email between Tom Barrack and Jeffrey Epstein, the beginning of the correspondence, he is talking to him like an employee talking to a boss almost, or trying to kind of tell him, hey, listen, dude, I know you can trust me. I always keep things secret, I know I've done mistakes in the past, but I've learned from them. And they've been jumping on Bill Clinton lately, but no one is talking enough about Donald Trump now, or they actually start talking less about Donald Trump. And how you doing, man? Tom Barrack just answered him shortly, and then he tells him, send me a picture of a child, of you and a child. Make me smile. It makes you wonder, what is his role in all of this? And even if he doesn't have any big major role in the whole Epstein scandal, isn't it something worth mentioning? And maybe that's not the right guy. It's like putting the cat to watch over the milk. I don't know if that's an English thing, but that's a saying in Hebrew. And I think it's just not very wise. Long-term financial dependence with the Gulf elite, structural incentives to align with UAE and Saudi interest. Appointed U.S. ambassador to Turkey. Simultaneously, U.S. special envoy to Syria. Surprise, surprise. De facto managing Turkey, Syria, northern Syria file. Policy poster aligned closely with Ankara's sensitivities. So we know that Turkey is becoming extremely extreme. Let's call it that way. Turkey is shifting towards Muslim Brotherhood on steroids. Turkey is endorsing Hamas ideology, terrorism. They're basically becoming a safe haven for arc terrorists. Turkey is talking non-stop about wanting to establish a Muslim caliphate in the Middle East. A lot of the Arabs around are getting very scared from what's happening in Turkey, let alone Christians. Turkey is heavily involved in a lot of criminal activity that is approved by the government. By the way, part of the Epstein file came and said that many of the children that were abducted to be in that island of Jeffrey Epstein and to be used for, child trafficking and all the other immoral stuff they did came from Turkey. And we do know that there's quite a lot of scandals about missing children that is happening around Turkey, especially after natural disasters where just a lot of children are unaccounted for. And, it's a tragic thing to imagine. Let's say there's an earthquake and your family perish, and there's children that no one knows where they are. Everything, the whole city is shaken. And in that time of dire need, more kids start disappearing. What a tragic situation to imagine that a child that suddenly, lost his family or got separated from them and then just get kidnapped and end up in the Epstein Island. So we do know that there's a lot of very shady things. And these are also, by the way, open investigations. Well, not open anymore, but, investigations that were mentioned, put on the table. Something shady is happening there and are being dropped right now. So there's a lot of sensitive stuff regarding Turkey and their support, by the way, the massacre that they're doing on the Kurds and others in the Middle East that America is aware of. But then Tom Barrack is there and he is managing the show. So it makes things very, very sensitive and very, very suspicious and very, very shady. Like everything about this guy is extremely shady. And I think that is worth mentioning. Now, reported that they want to even hand him the Iraq portfolio, envoy track, replacing Mark Savaya. Whew. Does that sound like there's something happening behind the scene that might not be good for America, and might not be good? Well, definitely not good for the minorities in the Middle East. Ask all of them. They basically despise the guy, and they think that he is the worst thing that happened almost in the Middle East lately. But it looks like he is promoting personal and elitist, Arab elitist mostly, or Muslim elitist mostly, agendas over the safety of minorities in the Middle East, that's undoubtedly, and also over the interest of long-term stability and security in the Middle East, that probably most likely is going to end up coming and biting the United States in the tuches, and also dragging the name of Donald Trump with him into the Syrian mud, the Iraqi mud. Nothing good is going to come out of this guy. There's no unity among the wicked, and the more that you play with them and try to please them and profit from them, it's going to end up coming and biting you in the tuches. You need to really detach yourself. How does that affect Israel? For the first time in the history that I remember, at least, it seems like this administration is taking more advice from Arab countries, some of them are extreme radical Muslim Brotherhood countries, than from Israel, than from the Christians on the ground, and other minorities like the Kurds and others, the Druze, that are allies of the US or big sympathizers of the United States. But all of a sudden, they're being pushed aside, and the one that is leading the show is Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar. How did that happen, and why is it happening? It is definitely a very important question, guys, to ask, because it seems, to me at least, there might be a lot of very shady things happening behind the scene, and if not even shady, just very devastating and damaging things that worth to be mentioned. So again, just want to bring it to your attention. Everything that I said here is public knowledge. You can go and research it yourself, and I recommend that you go and do that. But from everything that I just said, let's just summarize it that way. If I would have told you all of that, and I would have told you what should you do next with that person, any person with half a brain will come and say, keep him away from the Middle East. That guy have too many shady marks about him regarding the Middle East, that he should not be close to the Middle East. And what do they do instead? They give him the authority over the Middle East. Give him the key. Here you go. You manage the Middle East on behalf of this country, of this family, or I don't know what. And it is something that is very important to mention. Imagine someone comes and says, this guy have a lot of shady reports about him regarding children and regarding misbehavior towards children and abusive behavior towards children. And they come in and they investigate, and then they come and say, listen, everything that you said he did, but we just can't really charge him because it doesn't go against the law. So what we're going to do next is we're going to make him the principal of the education system in the country. We're going to give him access to every child in the country because we think that's the right thing to do because he knows children so well. That is exactly what they did with Tom Barrack and the Middle East. The guy that is the closest to the elites in the Middle East, that is catering to their needs, is the one right now that is running the show on their behalf in the Middle East and dragging America into possible serious scandals that will be talked about for centuries ahead. And I think it is just important. Call me crazy, but I just think it's worth your time to listen and learn about it.